My wedding day, which was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life, turned into the stage for my ultimate revenge when I exposed my fiancé and my own mother's secret affair in front of 200 shocked guests at the altar. My wedding day, meant to be the happiest of my life, became the scene of my ultimate retribution. I'm Allison Carter, 29, and I once held a firm belief in the enduring strength of family connections and love's power to conquer all. Only half a year prior, I was experiencing what many would term the quintessential Californian dream in vibrant San Diego. My role as a senior marketing director at a prominent downtown tech firm afforded me a substantial income, enabling me to lease a stunning ocean-facing residence in La Jolla. My existence appeared almost lifted from the pages of an upscale publication. I was on the cusp of marrying Brandon Mitchell, the man I truly believed was my soulmate. We had been together for 3 years, and every aspect felt entirely perfect. However, what rendered my life genuinely exceptional was my bond with my mother, Catherine Carter. At 52, she served as my dearest confidant, my most trusted ally, and the woman who had single-handedly reared me after my father's passing when I was 12. Catherine, a celebrated interior designer, possessed a kind, compassionate nature that drew others effortlessly to her. She was the sort of mother who continued to call daily simply to connect, who committed every significant date of mine to memory, and who approached my wedding preparations with the fervor of a bride-to-be herself. Brandon Mitchell, 31, was an engaging pediatrician at Children's Hospital of San Diego. He embodied every quality I had ever desired in a companion: intelligent, empathetic, and exceptionally attractive with his dark hair and luminous smile. We crossed paths at a philanthropic gala for childhood cancer research in 2021, and within 2 months, I instinctively knew I wished to spend eternity with him. He shared a remarkable rapport with my mother, frequently joining us for our customary Sunday brunches at our preferred establishment in Balboa Park. Catherine frequently remarked on my good fortune in finding such an exceptional man, prompting Brandon to modest blushes and claims of being the truly fortunate one. The ceremony was set for a November Saturday at the venerable Hotel del Coronado, with the reception to follow, offering views of the Pacific. 200 invitations had been dispatched, extending to family, friends, and professional associates from both his hospital and my tech firm. My time had been dedicated for months to meticulous planning, from the organic, locally sourced menu to the string quartet chosen for the rites. My university roommate from USC, Natalie, served as my maid of honor, and Brandon's brother from Portland fulfilled the role of best man. The rehearsal dinner was booked at George's at the Cove, and we had already confirmed our honeymoon suite reservation in Maui. All was unfolding precisely as intended. My mother had diligently assisted me with every minute detail, from selecting floral arrangements to addressing the invitations. She seemed almost more enthused about the nuptials than I was, constantly dispatching ideas and photos of decorative elements. Brandon had been equally invested, surprising me with his meticulous attention and his genuine excitement about commencing our married life together. We had secured the ideal residence in Encinitas, merely a 15-minute drive from both our workplaces, featuring a garden where Catherine could help me cultivate the vegetables she'd long promised to instruct me on. On the eve of our wedding, I lodged at a chic downtown San Diego hotel with Catherine and my bridal party, adhering to the custom of the groom remaining unseen until the ceremony. We'd enjoyed room service, a modest celebration complete with champagne and chocolate-dipped strawberries. It was precisely the kind of cherished mother-daughter interlude I envisioned recurring for years. Yet, sometimes, those nearest prove capable of the most profound treachery. Near 11:30 that evening, after the other bridesmaids had retired, my mother excused herself for a shower, leaving her iPhone powered beside her wine glass on the nightstand. I had no intention of prying, but when a text alert illuminated her display, my gaze involuntarily shifted. What met my eyes instantly chilled me to the bone, utterly destroying everything I believed about the two individuals dearest to me. The communication, originating from Brandon at 11:27 p.m., stated, "Catherine, this evening was beyond compare. The sensation of you in my embrace, the way you breathed my name. You consume my thoughts. Tomorrow will be challenging, but we shall navigate it together. My love is for you, not her." Accompanying the text was a photograph that eradicated any possibility of ambiguity or misunderstanding. It depicted a vivid, private scene of them both within what appeared to be Brandon's residence, captured merely hours before, while I was supposedly at my bachelorette celebration. In that solitary instant, my complete reality disintegrated. The man I was set to wed in under 12 hours had engaged in an affair with my very own mother. The woman who bore me, who cradled me through my sorrows, who had been my staunchest ally through every life hurdle, had now inflicted the most crushing betrayal imaginable. I remained transfixed by the phone display, feeling an almost disembodied sensation. My hands trembled, yet my thoughts were remarkably lucid. This was no drunken error or fleeting lapse in judgment. As I scrolled through their message log, it became evident this liaison had persisted for at least 2 months. Scores of messages detailed clandestine rendezvous, strategies for concealing their indiscretion from me, and, most egregious, discussions on managing their situation post-wedding. Their intent was to have me proceed down that aisle entirely ignorant of their deceit, subsequently sustaining their illicit connection as I commenced my married existence. I reflected on all the instances over the past few months when I had observed subtle indicators that didn't quite reconcile. My mother had been working late more frequently, asserting she had secured several high-profile clients who necessitated evening consultations. Brandon had been taking more overnight shifts at the hospital, explaining they were understaffed in the pediatric ICU. There had been knowing glances exchanged between them at family dinners, private jokes that seemed to exclude me, and a novel perfume my mother wore that Brandon had praised with a touch too much enthusiasm. I had dismissed all these disquieting signs because I reposed complete trust in them. In my profession, I was trained to scrutinize market trajectories, to identify patterns others overlooked, and to pinpoint inconsistencies in consumer conduct. But concerning my personal sphere, I had been utterly blind to the most patent indicators of deception. The perfidy extended beyond mere physical intimacy. It encompassed the deliberate artifice, the intricate falsehoods, and their intent to allow me to pledge my life to a man enamored with my mother. When Catherine re-emerged from her shower, her hair cloaked in a towel, donned in the silk robe I'd gifted her for Mother's Day, I had already captured multiple images of her phone display with my own device. My marketing acumen had instilled in me the critical value of concrete evidence and thorough record-keeping. I managed to maintain a level tone as I informed her I was weary and required rest before the monumental day. She pressed a kiss to my brow, remarking, "Rest well, my dear. Tomorrow promises to be the most magnificent day of your existence." The sheer paradox was almost unbearable. Once she retreated to her adjoining room, I settled on the bed's edge, allowing the complete burden of the betrayal to settle upon me. Rather than canceling the nuptials at once or confronting them in a surge of fury, I formulated a choice that would dictate all subsequent actions. I resolved to allow them their delusion of impunity until the precise instant I would unmask them before everyone significant in their lives. I dedicated the subsequent 4 hours to meticulous strategizing, employing the same systematic rigor I applied to significant marketing initiatives. Initially, I uploaded the captured images from my mother's phone to a secure cloud platform under my dominion. Following this, I fashioned a straightforward, yet utterly crushing presentation utilizing the hotel's business amenities, replete with the unambiguous messages and images that irrefutably demonstrated their illicit liaison. I crafted its appearance to be polished, akin to a nuptial slideshow, but filled with material certain to obliterate both their standing and their connection. Employing the hotel's rapid internet, I constructed a confidential website housing all the proof, safeguarded by a passcode I would disclose at the opportune time. The platform resided on a robust server capable of accommodating substantial visitor volume, and I ensured its mobile responsiveness for effortless guest viewing on their devices. Furthermore, I readied a contingency, assembling physical printouts of the most condemning texts and pictures, elegantly bound in sophisticated folders resembling ceremonial booklets. Subsequently, I contacted my attorney, Jennifer Walsh. Despite the hour approaching 3 a.m., Jennifer, who had managed my contractual dealings and corporate legal affairs for years, was an individual in whom I placed absolute confidence. She responded on the second ring, and notwithstanding the unseasonable time, she attentively absorbed my explanation of the circumstances. "Allison," she articulated, "I am deeply regretful this occurred, but I commend your clarity of thought. Your intended course of action is entirely lawful. This is your corroboration, your ceremony, and your existence. You possess every right to disclose the reality of your personal predicament." Jennifer further counseled me to record all details with precise timestamps and to ensure witnesses to the unfolding occurrences. She proposed her attendance at the wedding as my legal counsel, subtly positioning herself amidst the attendees should complications arise. Occasionally, she concluded, the most potent retribution is merely the truth, unveiled at the perfectly chosen instant. Sleep eluded me that night, yet with dawn's arrival, I sensed an unexpected tranquility and sharp focus. I bathed, donned my bespoke Vera Wang wedding gown, and gazed into the mirror. The woman reflected appeared serene, even luminous. Years had been dedicated to cultivating my repute as an individual adept at managing duress, capable of executing impeccable marketing initiatives amidst formidable constraints and consistently surpassing anticipated outcomes. This day would serve as the supreme trial of those abilities. I meticulously applied my cosmetics, fastened the diamond earrings my mother had presented for my birthday, and fashioned my hair into the refined updo we had rehearsed thrice. Every element demanded flawlessness, for I understood that in mere hours, Every attendee at this ceremony would distinctly recall my appearance, my demeanor, and my reaction to the most shattering betrayal conceivable. I was poised to deliver the definitive performance of my existence. At the venue, all unfolded precisely as choreographed. The floral arrangements were exquisite, the musicians prepared, and attendees arrived in their most elegant finery. My mother, Catherine, appeared resplendent in her champagne-hued gown, utterly oblivious that her reality was poised to fracture. She flawlessly embodied the role of the proud mother of the bride, welcoming guests and exchanging pleasantries about the impending beauty of the rites. Brandon arrived, looking dashing in his tailored tuxedo, pressing a kiss to my hand and murmuring, "You are absolutely flawless, my love." The sheer insolence of their charades was astonishing. They had shared intimacy less than 12 hours prior, and now both stood prepared to witness me commit my perpetual devotion and allegiance to him before our entire acquaintance. Yet I was prepared for them. I had dedicated months to discerning human nature, to comprehending their underlying motives, and to formulating communications with peak influence. This day, I would deploy every acquired proficiency to deliver the singular most crucial presentation of my life. The rites at Hotel del Coronado, superficially at least, epitomized every aspiration. The Pacific Ocean formed an arresting backdrop. November's climate was ideal, accompanied by a soft zephyr, and 200 attendees occupied pristine white chairs meticulously arrayed on the manicured verdant space. My mother had assisted in selecting each element, from the white rose and eucalyptus displays to the string quartet performing Pachel's Canon in D. As guests settled, I observed Brandon awaiting me at the altar, embodying the quintessential groom in his midnight blue tuxedo. His brother stood as best man, and my university roommate, Natalie, exuded brilliance in her navy bridesmaid gown. Reverend Thompson, the officiant from the local Presbyterian church, prepared to commence the proceedings with his characteristic geniality and solemnity. Everything mirrored the idyllic matrimonial event I had orchestrated for months. As I processed down the aisle on the arm of my Uncle David, my mother's brother, who had kindly consented to give me away, I sensed the gaze of 200 individuals fixed upon me. The assemblage comprised my entire extended kin, Brandon's family from across the nation, associates from both the hospital and my tech enterprise, and companions gathered over the years. Christina, my supervisor from the startup, radiated delight. Brandon's pediatric ward colleagues were present with their partners, and even some of my mother's interior design clientele had come to partake in the celebration. My mother, Catherine, occupied the front row, clad in the champagne dress we had jointly chosen at Nordstrom 3 months prior. She dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief, embodying the tender mother witnessing her daughter's nuptials. Brandon's parents had journeyed from Denver, appearing genuinely pleased to embrace me into their lineage. The dissimulation was profound, yet I preserved my equanimity and my smile. All was unfolding precisely as intended. Reverend Thompson initiated the ceremony with the customary pronouncements regarding affection, devotion, and the hallowed union of matrimony. I comprehended the gravity of the occasion, aware that in mere moments, this exquisite celebration would metamorphose into an indelible memory for all present. The Reverend expounded on fidelity, the essence of candor within marriage, and the imperative for partners to collectively confront adversities. If only he had foreknowledge of the impending revelations. During the initial segment of the ceremony, I had orchestrated for Maria, the hotel's event coordinator, to commence distributing what appeared to be exclusive booklets to the guests. Maria, seasoned by countless weddings at the Del Coronado, was recognized for her prudence and proficiency. I had informed her the booklets contained a distinctive surprise element for the reception, and she had consented to quietly circulate them during the service. Every booklet contained a QR code and a passcode, directing guests to my confidential digital platform. The timing proved impeccable, as most attendees would be sufficiently intrigued to consult their devices at once, yet decorous enough to maintain silent modes during the proceedings. From the periphery of my vision, I observed Maria navigating the rows, tendering booklets to small clusters of guests. My Uncle Frank from Phoenix was among the first to scan his QR code, input the password, and I witnessed his countenance transition from intrigue to bewilderment, then to absolute dread. Approximately 15 seconds later, my cousin Jennifer examined her phone display and covered her mouth in disbelief. My supervisor, Christina, turned ashen and presented her screen to her spouse, who audibly gasped. The propagating effect, from a marketing viewpoint, was compelling to witness. Within minutes, almost every guest had their mobile device exposed, and the ambience perceptibly transformed. There were hushed colloquies, stunned visages, and individuals conveying their devices to those who had yet to receive the booklets. The substantiation disseminated through the assembly with the rapidity of a brush fire, precisely as I had engineered. The explicit communications between Brandon and my mother, their shared photographs, the chronicle illustrating their months-long liaison, all were present, time-stamped, and incontrovertible. Yet, the ceremony persisted, and I stood there, maintaining a calm smile, awaiting the optimal moment to act. Reverend Thompson was midway through his sermon on sacred vows and eternal commitment when I observed Brandon's Aunt Linda displaying her phone to Brandon's mother, who uttered a muffled cry before concealing her mouth with a handkerchief. My mother, Catherine, remained oriented forward, engrossed in the minister's discourse on affection and fidelity, utterly oblivious to the intensifying tumult behind her. My Uncle David, who had accompanied me moments earlier, was seated in the second row when my cousin extended a booklet to him. I witnessed him scan the QR code with the same initial inquisitive expression everyone had worn. His visage underwent the identical metamorphosis: intrigue, perplexity, then unadulterated shock upon comprehending the content. He cast a glance at my mother, then at Brandon, then reverted to his phone display, his mouth slightly agape in disbelief. Brandon began to appear disquieted as he noted individuals around him consulting their devices and murmuring urgently to one another. He persistently surveyed the congregation, endeavoring to ascertain the source of the escalating disturbance. My mother remained blissfully uninformed, occasionally rotating to smile at attendees and dabbing her eyes with her handkerchief, enacting the persona of the sentimental mother of the bride. The awaited moment finally materialized. Reverend Thompson arrived at the conventional segment of the ceremony where he inquires if anyone contests the union. If any person can demonstrate just cause why Allison and Brandon may not be joined together in holy matrimony, he intoned in his profound, resounding voice, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. I advanced and gently retrieved the microphone from the Reverend's grasp. A profound stillness enveloped the hotel lawn, broken only by the distant murmur of waves against the shore and the throb of my own pulse. I directed my gaze first at Brandon, then at my mother, and finally across the assembly filled with those who had just unearthed the truth of their perfidy. Indeed, I declared, my voice unwavering and distinct, carried by the ocean breeze. I have something of paramount importance to communicate. My mother turned to face me, and I perceived the precise instant she grasped that something was profoundly amiss. Her expression shifted from bewilderment to realization, then to absolute dread as she discerned the horror etched on the faces of the guests behind her. Brandon took a half-step toward me, his countenance now crimson with alarm as he comprehended his secret was no longer confined. Allison, he began to articulate, but I raised my hand to halt him. I adored you, Brandon, I resumed, addressing him directly with the same composed, professional cadence I employed in executive presentations. I cherished you with every fiber of my being. I entrusted you with my heart, my future, and my aspirations. I paused, allowing the gravity of my pronouncements to settle. And mother, I rotated to confront her, I loved you beyond measure. You were my dearest confidant, my paradigm, the woman who instilled in me fortitude and integrity. The hotel lawn was so hushed that the cries of distant seagulls were audible. Even the children had ceased their restlessness. Every individual was captivated by my every utterance, and I could feel the profundity of the moment. This was my juncture, my opportunity to convey the most pivotal message of my existence. Yet, treachery, particularly from those one holds dearest, necessitates repercussions, I stated, my tone still calm, but imbued with the full intensity of my anguish and indignation. Last night, I uncovered that the two individuals I confided in most profoundly in the world have been deceiving me, betraying me, and conspiring to have me proceed down this aisle utterly oblivious to their deceit. My mother attempted speech, but no articulation emerged. Brandon now visibly trembled, his hands quivering as he sought a means to salvage the predicament. The guests were in utter astonishment, some weeping, others appearing incensed, all fixated on the digital corroboration on their devices that irrefutably substantiated the clandestine activity. The substantiation is unequivocal, time-stamped, and irrefutable, I resumed, gesturing toward the assembly, where almost every individual now clutched their mobile device, having viewed the explicit communications and images proving the liaison. For the preceding 2 months, while I meticulously planned our nuptials, selecting flora, sampling confections, and addressing invitations, my fiancé and my mother pursued an illicit connection behind my back. The resulting pandemonium surpassed anything I had ever witnessed. Guests shouted inquiries, some rising to gain a clearer vantage, others re-examining their phones to confirm their observations. My mother was now weeping uncontrollably, her carefully applied cosmetics streaking her visage. Brandon endeavored to force his way through the throngs to reach me, exclaiming, Allison, please permit me to elucidate. But I had not concluded. I had devoted months to preparing for this precise instant, and I intended to convey my message comprehensively. They intended for me to marry him today, I proclaimed, my voice piercing the tumult. They intended for me to pledge my affection and fealty to him before all of you, while they persisted in their liaison behind my back. They were poised to desecrate this hallowed ceremony, our kin, and every individual who journeyed here today to commemorate what they perceived as authentic affection. My Uncle David now stood erect, his countenance inflamed with wrath, appearing desirous of physically confronting Brandon. Several of my cousins encircled my mother, some attempting solace, others plainly repulsed by their discovery. Brandon's parents appeared utterly aghast, his mother shielding her face with her hands, while his father remained transfixed in shock. "This matrimonial union is terminated," I declared, my voice severing the chaos. "And so are both these relationships. I will not wed a man who has engaged in intimacy with my mother. And I will not sustain a connection with a woman capable of such complete betrayal against her own offspring." I returned the microphone to Reverend Thompson, who seemed to have encountered nothing comparable in his 30 years of officiating weddings. Then I commenced my return down the aisle, my head held high, my wedding gown trailing behind me, abandoning the two individuals who had annihilated not merely my trust, but the very bedrock of my entire family. The guests were now immersed in utter bedlam. Some trailed me, voicing affirmations and encouragement. Others confronted Brandon and my mother, demanding explanations. I heard my mother weeping and uttering my name, pleading with me to halt, to permit her to elucidate. Brandon was shouting that circumstances were not as they appeared, that resolution was possible, how deeply he cared for me. Yet I continued walking, experiencing an unlooked-for sense of emancipation. Behind me, the magnificent nuptial ceremony I had meticulously planned for months dissolved into disarray. But somehow, I felt more genuine and truthful than I had in years. The truth, as ruinous as it was, had liberated me from an existence founded on falsehoods and deceit. My closest friend, Natalie, reached me near the hotel entrance. "Allison," she remarked, still comprehending the unfolding events. "I cannot fathom they inflicted this upon you. How are you enduring?" I met her gaze, realizing that for the first time in months, my perception of my circumstances was entirely lucid. "I am more content than I have been in a considerable time," I conveyed to her. Truth possesses a unique capacity to set one free, even when it obliterates all you believed you desired. Within hours, the narrative had permeated far beyond the confines of Hotel del Coronado. Several attendees had disseminated the evidence across social platforms, and by Sunday evening, the account was trending on Instagram and Twitter. Local San Diego news outlets had seized upon it by Monday morning, and by Tuesday, I was fielding inquiries from national media agencies seeking interviews regarding the wedding that had become notorious for all the erroneous reasons. I declined the majority of interview requests, but I did confer with one reporter from the San Diego Union-Tribune who had previously covered commercial narratives concerning my tech enterprise. I kept my remarks concise and decorous. "I advocate for verity and openness," I articulated. "Individuals merit awareness of whom they are truly engaging with, particularly concerning matters of confidence and rectitude. The events at my wedding were merely the inevitable culmination of months of duplicity and perfidy. The professional repercussions for Brandon and my mother were swift and severe. Brandon's standing at Children's Hospital became untenable once the story gained public notoriety. The hospital administration, already navigating budgetary constraints and public scrutiny, could not retain a pediatrician implicated in such a scandal. He was discreetly urged to resign within 2 weeks, and his medical licensure came under review by the state board. My mother's interior design firm, built entirely upon client endorsements and personal connections, effectively crumbled overnight. Several significant clients rescinded their agreements, and her business associate of 8 years dissolved their collaboration. The personal ramifications proved even more profound. My extended family, traditionally close-knit, fractured completely. Half of my relatives severed all ties with my mother, while others attempted to maintain relationships with both of us, generating uncomfortable strains at every familial gathering. My mother's own sibling, Aunt Rebecca, publicly disavowed her, stating her actions were inexcusable and repugnant. I took 3 weeks leave from work to assimilate all that had transpired and to manage the media attention. My company was remarkably supportive, with my supervisor Christina expressing admiration for my handling of the predicament. "You demonstrated authentic fortitude and integrity," she asserted. "Not everyone would have possessed the gall to expose the truth thus, especially in such a public forum." For months subsequent to the wedding incident, I made a decision that astonished even myself. I accepted an employment offer from a prominent marketing corporation in New York City. The prospect emerged via a professional acquaintance who had indeed learned of my narrative and was impressed by my adeptness in crisis management. The timing felt serendipitous. I required a fresh beginning, distant from the recollections and the hearsay that still accompanied me in San Diego. New York presented me with a creative director role, featuring a substantial remuneration increase and the chance to collaborate with Fortune 500 corporations on avant-garde digital campaigns. Before my departure from California, I engaged in one conclusive dialogue with my mother. She had been endeavoring to contact me for months, but I had declined her calls. Finally, she appeared at my apartment on a Saturday morning, looking more aged and broken than I had ever witnessed her. "Allison," she voiced, tears cascading down her countenance. "I recognize I cannot undo my actions, but I need you to comprehend my remorse. I obliterated everything dear to me, and I shall lament it for the remainder of my existence. I cannot explain what possessed me, but I know it was erroneous. And I know I have forfeited you eternally." I observed her standing in my doorway, this woman who had been my heroine for 29 years, and felt an unexpected emotion, compassion. "Mother," I articulated, "I absolve you, not because you merit it, but because harboring this resentment is draining, and I possess more valuable pursuits in life than despising you." 8 months later, I flourished in Manhattan, engaged in campaigns that creatively stimulated me and surrounded by associates oblivious to my past, save what I chose to disclose. I had recommenced dating, proceeding cautiously, and exercising considerable prudence regarding trust. The ordeal had imparted invaluable lessons on interpreting individuals and discerning warning signs, proficiencies that proved beneficial both personally and professionally. I learned through mutual acquaintances that Brandon had relocated to Seattle and was working at a modest clinic, while my mother had moved to a compact apartment in Phoenix to be nearer her elderly parents. Their liaison had ceased almost immediately subsequent to the wedding debacle, evidently unable to withstand the unforgiving glare of public scrutiny and the ramifications of their deeds. The narrative of my wedding day revelation had become something of a saga within San Diego's social circles, but I seldom reflected upon it anymore. I had advanced to greater and more significant endeavors, and the perfidy that had once appeared as the culmination of my world had, in actuality, marked the commencement of a renewed and more genuine existence. At times, the most calamitous reverses emerge as the most extraordinary opportunities for development, rejuvenation, and discovering one's true self when all perceived certainties are eroded.